Hey, I'm Kristin Messerli, and so excited to be here with Susan Stewart. She is one of my favorite people in the industry that I have always looked up to. Susan is the founder and CEO of SWBC Mortgage, headquartered in San Antonio. She's also the chairman of the Mortgage Bankers Association, and does a million other things. So, Susan, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so happy to be with you today.
So, this podcast is really just all about asking you about some of the pivotal moments in your life. And so I'd love for you to kick us off by sharing one audacious moment in your career. And when I say audacious, I mean one of those moments that you think, I really took a leap of faith, or I decided to, take a chance on something. So I would love to hear your story.
Life-altering things.
Yeah.
I really think when I think about my career, the most significant leap of faith I took was taking this job at SWBC. I was 29 years old when I came over to interview. I'd never heard of them. They had started a mortgage company, but really just in name and only, and incorporating it. And I met the two guys that own the holding company, and I thought I just liked them a lot. I was in a job that was really stressful and difficult, but I was just kind of slogging it out like you do. And I got recruited, and I took the job, and almost immediately after I took the job, I mean, within a month, I realized that it wasn't a job to manage a company. It was a job to develop, make a company, which was so far outside of my skill set at that time. But I am a really big believer in taking the opportunity and just making yourself figure out the best way to be successful with that opportunity. So it's a stressful kind of way to go sometimes, but it's been true pretty much my whole career that I was always willing to take the stretch opportunity. I was a single mom when I got in the business, and I felt a lot of pressure to do well and survive. And so my solution was just to work really hard and always be willing to take that opportunity. So coming here, nobody else was in the mortgage business. Nobody else had mortgage experience for that matter. So it was really like, here are three people and you need to make it a company. And the three people weren't really mortgage people. And it was one of those things where you go home and you think, wow, I've really done it this time. But I was right to go to work for Gary and Charlie. I had other places that I worked where I felt like the leaders were not going to support me in the way that I wanted to be supported. And that was the most important thing. And they have done that for 32 years. So it turns out that was a leap of faith that was so worth it. But I think back and think, I kind of can't believe I just did it. I'm glad I did.
I think about that constantly. And I introduced you as the founder because I always think of you in that way, but you grew it from those three people to 650 employees now?
I think there's 750 people now.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. It's crazy.
So I think, I'm sure along the way, you've had many moments where you thought, okay, I've tried this out and it's not working. Or you thought I need to pivot in my strategy here. And I know for me, I definitely, every step of my career, I've thought, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I got to figure this out. And it's not, I think, can imagine going from 3 to 700, you're taking a lot of those pivots. Can you describe any moment in your life or in your career where you have needed to pivot, or some kind of pivotal moment?
Well, you're right to say that along the way, you're sort of constantly pivoting. But when I think back about, and one of the things about when you start a company, basically, is you feel such a sense of ownership and responsibility to do everything right that can make you be too invested in every decision and every process. And about 12 years ago, I had a extremely difficult employee situation I was dealing with. And I literally was so stressed out about it, I made myself sick. And within a few months of that, I got kidney cancer. And I've always attributed my weak immune system to my mismanagement of my stress. And it taught me this lesson that I needed to learn for a long time, that it's really important to remember that the failure of a professional relationship is not personal, and nothing is worth sacrificing your health and happiness for. And I usually get along with pretty much everyone. But since I've worked here, there have been 3 times in 32 years that I've had just, it wasn't ever going to be good. But the next 2 times, fortunately, were after that time. And I just had a different attitude about it. It was like, not meant to be, best not to work together. We don't come from the same place. And I didn't turn it into this personal failing that then kind of undid my well-being, and it made a real important impression on me. And I watch other people do that sometimes. It's like, it's really important to remember big picture here, that it's never worth your health. And you're so stressed out, or you're so anxious, or you're so worried, or you don't sleep, or whatever. Change it. Just change it.
Gosh,
It'll be better. The change will be better.
Yeah, I need to hear that. I constantly, anytime I've realized that I'm going against my values or I'm stressing really, really hard, I get super sick. And it's just my body holds on to those emotions. And so, but I would imagine that I would be in the same boat with any kind of interpersonal relationships. I invest so much of myself into that. And I think a lot of times as women, but I'm sure everyone does this, where you feel very invested in the people that you are hiring and managing. And so in general, I mean, it's been an extremely stressful year for you and everyone, but how do you manage that kind of stress now? Are you like, okay, I've got these boundaries, or I've got routines, or what do you do to manage the stress now?
It has been a really stressful year in many ways. And one of the things about being at this stage in your career that I am, and the age that I am, when you take on something new, you're really at the point where you don't have to take a chance anymore. You don't have to put yourself out there anymore. Frankly, you don't. You can stay in your own little cocoon. Everybody works for me. Generally, they're going to be nice to me, right? So I don't have to really put myself out there and feel vulnerable like you do again. And I make a point of making myself do that, right? So the MBA role is a perfect example of that. That is not something I really had on my list of things to do. It's a great honor, but I wasn't really going down that track. And so there have been periods in the last year or so with everything that's gone on that it's been incredibly stressful. And I have really had to step back and put it in perspective. And I just got through telling my grown daughter this, one of them the other day. It's like, it's not as big as you're making it, right? It's not as big. And that is very true for me. As I was telling you, my husband went through it in Illinois. I just had some personal things on top of all the work stuff. And I thought, okay, what should you do? Maybe you should try to feel a little healthier, right? Maybe exercise a little more, maybe be a little more careful with yourself, because you sort of feel that fragility. When you absorb it, it becomes physical, like you said. So that's what I've tried to do. It's like, step back a minute and just try to stay in the routine. That routine helps you, I think, sometimes. So I took a few days off after I lost my mom, and then I thought it's better for me to come back to work and get back in my routine. And it was better for me, and just do what I could do. And so I have to remind myself, and I probably will the rest of my life, don't make it bigger than it is. Step back a little bit. And at the end of the day, enjoy things a little bit more, right? Have a little bit more fun with things that are hard. Don't make it all work. I'm a worker. So if I'm not careful, I make everything work. It's like, it's not work. This is a joyous thing. This is a great thing I'm getting to do, right? I should be happy about it and enjoy it more.
Yeah, that's so good. I keep trying to remind myself that, like, I love this. This stress is fun for me. Sometimes you lose perspective, and I was just thinking that earlier today, actually. I have 2 employees here working from home with me. And I was like, okay, back-to-back meetings, so stressful. And then I was like, wait a second, this is super fun. Like, this is a fun job, and there's a lot to do, and there's always going to be a lot to do. So that's really great advice. So I know that there's many ways that you have challenged the status quo in our industry and in your career, but is there one way in particular that comes to mind that you have challenged the status quo?
I think because of my upbringing, because I had such a strong mom who was always doing amazing things, like over and over and over. The older she got, the more amazing things she would do. So it was this example to me that don't let somebody else's bias, unconscious bias, limitations they want to put on you move past it really fast. Don't spend any time on it. Just keep moving forward. And I think in this industry that's been male dominated for most of my career, and I've had some fabulous male mentors as well as worked with some wonderful women, but there were few women in leadership positions, very few. And so if you wanted a mentor, it was typically going to be male, which was nothing wrong with that, except for they don't have your same life. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think I challenged the status quo in the sense that I just decided that I was going to be gender blind. It didn't matter about anybody else, that I was going to do what I needed to do. I was going to slough off any of the things that were bothersome or limiting. And along the way, certainly before I came to work here, I would quit. I would leave a job over it. It's like, I feel like that this guy is not interested in my talent or my abilities or my future at all, and I'm out of here. And I did that a few times early in my career. Again, I think that was a little bit of a leap out there, but I don't know of any female mortgage leaders that haven't made those kinds of moves and decisions where you just don't let these limitations that other people might put on you, right? So I think, they asked me to do the MBA role. The most important part of that role to me, other than I love the mortgage bankers, is that I'd be the third woman. That was the critical thing. In fact, if it hadn't been for that, I might not have been as focused on, or as interested in the opportunity. I thought, that's a great thing for our industry to see us making progress, stepping out, taking chances, and developing companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's so huge. I think I love the idea of being gender blind. And I think, I've definitely tried to approach things in that way, but then sometimes you are confronted with like, okay, I'm being treated differently here, or I am, someone, I don't know, there was a poor interaction that was definitely due to my gender. And I think sometimes in the past, speaking of being sick, that has made me sick because I've been so stressed about it. And instead, I think, I would have liked to have been taught, I guess, at a younger age, not putting this on someone else, but like generally as a society, that we teach each other to either say, I'm not going to stand for this. I can go somewhere else that will be, more inclusive or whatever, or I'm going to push through it. And I know for me, I had one instance where I had the biggest proposal I'd ever given on the table. And this guy who was the decision maker made a pass at me, and I was totally devastated. And I went to a mentor, and he was like, no, do not give up on this. Like, keep going, set your boundaries, and keep going. You don't have to interact with him forever, but just, set your boundaries. And I thought this is such an interesting intersection where you decide to either, in some instances, and definitely if I'd been working for him, I think I would have left or complained or whatever. But I went ahead and pushed through it, and I got the proposal and got the contract, and it worked out really well, and I didn't interact with him anymore. But I think it's very difficult a lot of times to set those boundaries and say, okay, I don't want to, I don't have to experience this. There's other people that want you to be the chairman of the association. They want you to rise to the top, and we don't have to experience that. So I know that I sometimes I hesitate to even like bring up those types of questions and comments because I don't want to continue to perpetuate that conversation, but it's still happening. And I think
it does still happen. It happened to me all the time early in my career. And I will say that I suspect the advice I would have given at that time would have been, here's the deal. You don't have to push through it if you don't want to. You get permission to walk away from an unpleasant situation that you shouldn't have to deal with, right? Yeah. I had a very bad experience very early in my career, my first job in the mortgage business. And boy, after that, I was like, don't even look my direction. I was really sensitive to it. And I was sensitive to the fact that it was even something that we have to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's like, people don't understand the pressure that makes you feel and the vulnerability and the intimidation of it, right? That's hard to describe if no one's ever felt that way. But if you've ever felt that way, it's like, here's what's important to know. You never have to put up with that. I don't care what. And that does need to be said, and that's not gone. You're right. It's better. It's better, but it's not gone.
Yeah. And that's such an empowering thing to believe, like I do think that's something that now I can say, but early in my career, and I think a lot of people don't feel that they have the autonomy or ability to say that, and say, okay, well, it's choosing to go through this, or I don't know, we push ourselves too hard in those situations when, like you've done, you can leave them and find something better, and so I think that's, really important advice and very, empowering.
I think
so
when it's extreme, and it was for me early, it's important for yourself that you know that this isn't something that is going to hold you back and that you have to deal with and that you can move past it. But it is scary and intimidating at the time, for sure.
That's a really, really good point. I do think when it's really extreme, which I did have an experience like that very, very early on, if you don't speak up and don't use your voice, then that can hurt your body, that can hurt you, like just not speaking up, and that can hurt you in so many ways.
Absolutely.
So I completely agree. And what's great now is that there are so many women in this industry, and I know I'm always happy to talk about this, but that want to support other women. If things like that are happening, I don't know, we're here for each other. And I love Empower that, Marsha Davies started. I know you're very active in. We've developed a network of women that we can have these conversations. And I think that's so important. So, so speaking of challenging the status quo and being strong within yourself, my next question, and really my last question here, is just how have you challenged the status quo within yourself? Like that, is thinking about, has there been a time when you've kind of shifted your mindset or decided to think about things differently that's made a difference for you?
So I'm a work in progress, for sure, and I'm still working on this. But one of the things that I've thought about more is that I never really lacked the confidence about doing the job. I knew that I was smart enough and I would work hard enough. So I didn't have a confidence problem. But I also I'll celebrate something good for like 30 seconds, and then I want to go to the next big problem I should be dealing with. And I am almost never willing to think I deserve any of the credit for the success. I appreciate that I'm part of a group of people that have been successful, but I'm unable to quite get to the place where I think, well, I did that, right? Or I was part of making that happen. And one of the people that I've worked for all these years, and I love them both, literally family members to me. And I said, I was really lucky. I think I've been so lucky. And he said, no, you're not lucky. You're just really talented and really good. And I don't know why you want to say you're lucky. And I thought, what a nice thing to say to somebody, right? Because it was sort of like, well, that's nice you think that, but you like me. You're saying that because I'm like your family member too. But it really took me aback. And I thought, to me, that's a very female characteristic.
Totally.
You will rarely hear that from anybody that's not a woman, that's like, well, everybody around me is really good. That's why we've been successful. And I actually do think that, by the way. I know it, as a matter of fact. But I also know when I'm not challenged with it, that I was part of that and that I have led to success, right? But women have a hard time sort of taking on the success and celebrating it and feeling like they've done well. It's like, well, I better do something else here pretty quick. And that was really, my mind still works that way. Like, everybody had a great year, everything's great. And I'll think that was great. Now back in there to figure out what's not great that you should be working on. And so I'm really trying to bring a little more joy into the way I think about things. I love my job and I love the people I work with. I love them. But I don't allow myself much celebratory time. So I'm going to work on that.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like taking a step back and being like, oh no, I enjoy this. This is a good moment here, you know. And I had someone tell me one time when I had first started my business to really try to celebrate the small victories. And it's interesting because I remember very vividly some of them, this very small victories early in my career. And so because I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, right now I feel like I've made it in some way, you know, and it was something so early or whatever. But I think taking in those moments and just, you know, feeling it. And that's also kind of like feeling the gratitude. There's so many studies about what that can do for your health as well. And so I think stepping back but I was listening to a podcast recently with Amy Poehler, and she was saying how someone asked her one time, can you even believe, like, can you believe your success? Can you even believe that you're here? And she was like, yeah, I can believe it. Like, of course, I worked hard and I'm smart and I did well, you know? And that's like,
but that's right. But most women won't say that, right? They'll say, no,
I want
it's like a miracle. I just fell into it. I was so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I've been working myself to death, but I cannot believe I'm here.
Well, I love men that ask a man that, and they're not going to say they were lucky.
Yeah.
They're better at saying, no, I was part of this and it was great and it makes me feel really good. They're just better. They learn that young or something. It's like women won't raise their hand if they don't think they know how to do something, and men will just say, I'll do it. You know, it's the same sort of thing. And I'm trying to undo that because I think, one, you want people that are around you and work with you to feel joyful as well. You don't want it to feel like it's always work. You're like, you know, it's just, we got to drudge. And years ago, my husband, who's the president of the company here, and he came to work here after I've been here 10 years. He was walking around, he was real cheerful, and it was a really tough time in our business. I mean, it was really hard. Nothing was going well. This is probably 20 years ago. I said, how do you walk around looking so happy? I mean, it was like irritating me, right? He's like, what are you happy about? And he looked at me and he said, it's our job to act like this. And I thought, what a good point, right? It's your job to seem like you're having fun. And then, of course, you are having fun. But I do think that is something that, for whatever reason, female are slow to give themselves sort of any joy or appreciation for success they have. They're glad about it, but they don't really think they were lucky.
Yeah. And you're right. It does like reflect down to everyone else that's working for you too. I mean, it's the same idea of, you know, looking at the airline attendants when the plane's having turbulence or whatever. It's like, oh, they look fine. They're fine.
Right. So it must be fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that, you know, when we get so busy and the company's growing and there's so much going on, particularly this last year when people really needed to see a smiling face and hear that things were good and it was good. Aren't we so lucky and fortunate? And it's great. It doesn't matter how busy we are. And that made everything better. That really and truly, it's fine. I'm going to make you feel fine because I'm going to tell you it's fine. And then ultimately, it creates the environment you want to be in. Nobody wants to be where it's all work, no play, no fun, all serious.
Yeah, but it does have to come from within first. Like you have to believe it, feel it yourself. So yeah.
That's true.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I loved talking with you and can't wait to share this with everyone. So
go take care of your health. It's the number one thing.
Yes,
Don't anybody have your health.
Yeah. And feel it all. Thank you.
Well, it's good. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.